Welcome back, Year 11s. We're going to look at question 3 now, and the shout out for this one is going to go to Angus. Angus, you know who you are. Congratulations, you got the shout out this time. Okay, this question is talking about temperatures in Nairobi and temperatures in Rome, so we'll need to come back to these graphs. And we've got our friend Richard who's trying to investigate something about these cities. So I'll let you pause it there and read it if you need to. Otherwise I'm going to crack on into it. So the first thing Richard is asserting that Rome is higher than the temperature, or the temperature in Rome is higher than the temperature in Nairobi, so Rome is warmer, right? Well, look, the maximum temperature in Rome in the summer months is higher than some of the maximum temperatures in Nairobi. But Nairobi is consistently warm. It is never less, or never has maximums less than 20 during any part of the year. Whereas if we draw a line at 20 across the graph on Rome, we can see that actually at least half of the year Rome is having maximums of less than that. So we can definitely say no, Rome is not necessarily warmer from maximum's point of view. If we also look at minimums, the minimum in Nairobi never goes below 10, the average minimum, but the average minimum in Rome is below 10 half of the time. So, sorry Richard, you really got that one wrong there. So, no, both the average max and min temperatures are lower in Rome for around half of the year. Okay, so that's a pretty simple one to go through. Okay, comment on how the maximum and minimum temperatures in the two cities vary. So here they're really talking about all the seasonal effects that we have. So in Rome we have a very strong seasonal effect. It's obviously a sort of a temperate climate with the maximums and the minimums. Nairobi we also have a seasonal effect, but it's not as strong. And we also seem to have a sort of a double or a bimodal sort of thing going there within each year. So what we'll say is both cities show seasonal variation for average max and min temperatures. Rome, we won't say max, we'll say peaks and if we look at our graph carefully, it looks like it's peaking around July to September roughly. So July through to September, while Nairobi is peaking in October and November. So yeah, a bit later on in the year, so November, October, and yeah, we'll say Rome has lows in the winter, so around December through February. Okay, alright, going on to our next set of questions. So question C, Richard has been told that both maximum and minimum temperatures vary less in Rome than they do in Nairobi. Do the graphs justify this? Well, you know, looking back at our graphs, a lot of variation in Rome, not so much variation in Nairobi, and yeah, we're seeing about we're seeing a lot of variation in both the maximums and minimums in Rome. So no, we can say no, and yeah, Nairobi has less variation than Rome. Okay, going on to question D, Richard thinks that the temperatures appear to be rising in Rome, so we'll get warm in the future. Do you agree? Well, if we look at the minimums, they're not changing. If we look at the tops of the minimums, they're not really changing. Looking at the bottoms of the maximums, no, they don't seem to be changing. Tops of the maximums, no, there's really no change there, so it's totally not justified there, so we'll say no, and basically just something along the lines of not seeing any rise or trend in temperature, so no rise in overall trend of Rome's temperature, and also no downward trend either. Okay, next question. Is Richard correct to say that the difference between the maximum and minimum temperature is less in Rome? So let's have a look here. So I'm looking at a difference between the maximum and the minimum in Rome. We're looking at something around, between 8 and 10 degrees. In Nairobi, some of the maximum differences are really quite big. So on average we're probably seeing something more between 10 to 14 degrees there, so yeah, he is right in that, so I'll say yes, Richard is correct. So yes, around 8 to 10 degree difference in max and min temp in Rome, while around 10 to 14 degree difference in Nairobi. Okay, alright, on to question F. Richard wants to live somewhere. Should he choose Rome or Nairobi? Justify your answer by referring to the graphs. Discuss any limitations in the data, other research that you need to do. Well, look, if we go back and look at our graphs, and think about some of the stuff here, and I'm going to talk to this question. I'm actually not going to write anything down here, but look, Rome has some lovely seasonal weather, where it's really warm in summer and nice and cool in the winter. And so if you like seasonal weather, then Rome is for you. However, if you like constant weather, well, Nairobi is far more constant. There's a temperature range of only about 6 degrees throughout the year. But temperature is not everything. There's things like humidity as well to take into account, so that's a limitation. And you also don't know how long is that the temperature. Nairobi, for all you know, might reach its maximum for 2 minutes and then drop back down to its daily minimum. We're not told how long it stays at its maximum or anything like that. So that's a limitation as well. And same thing in Rome. On these really hot days, we don't know how long it's hot for. We don't know how long it's cold for. So we need more data really before we can say definitely where he should be. Okay, so that's a discussion of F, which is the excellence question. And if you're really thinking about things carefully there, you're going to get a T. And we've got 2 R questions here, and C is really an achieved only question, and B, depending on how you've answered that, can be anything from U to T, and that first question there is a U, an achieved question as well. Okay, so I hope this is helpful, team, and tune in next